Geçtiğimiz Ocak ayında müvekkilimiz Gökhan Güneş evinden iş yerine gitmek üzereyken iş yerinin önünde kaçırıldı ve 6 gün boyunca sistematik işkenceye maruz kaldı. Hem Gökhan'ın yaşadıkları hem Gökhan'ın avukatları olarak bu süreçte neler yaptığımızı sizlerle paylaşmak istiyoruz. Biliyorsunuz Türkiye ve Kürdistan coğrafyası özellikle 90'lı yıllardan bu yana çok fazla hak ve özgürlüğün ihlaline tanıklık etti. Bunlardan maalesef en başında gözaltında kaybedilme politikası geliyor. Kayıt dışı bir şekilde gözaltına alma ve gözaltında kaybedilme o yıllar bakımından çok daha sistematik hale gelmiş bir devlet politikasıydı. Bugün bakımından da Gökhan'ın kaçırılmasıyla birlikte amaçlanan bu politikayı yeniden gündeme getirmek ve Türkiye'de hak ve özgürlük mücadelesi yürüten kesimleri bu vesileyle baskı altına almaktı. Hem Gökhan'la birlikte hem Gökhan'dan sonra çok fazla sayıda kayıt dışı bu gözaltı süresi içerisinde işkence ve aynı zamanda bu kişilerle işbirliği yapmak ve bu kişileri bir devlet ajanı olarak konumlandırma politikası belli düzeylerde hala devam ediyor. Gökhan'ın kaçırılmasıyla ilgili olarak da şunları söyleyebiliriz. Gökhan'ın kaçırılmasının hemen ardından yaşadığı yer ve kaçırıldığı yerin ilgili savcılık makamına bir başvuru yaptık. Gökhan'ın cep telefon numarasını paylaştık. Bazı bilgilerinden Gökhan'ın nerede olabileceği, kimler tarafından kaçırılmış olabileceği ve kaçıran kişilerin tüm bağlantısının açığa çıkartılmasını talep ettik. Aynı zamanda olay yerini gören, çünkü orası bir iş yeri, aynı zamanda bir otobüs durağı, olay yerini gören tüm kamera görüntülerinin toplanmasını istedik. Ama maalesef günlerce bu taleplerimizin kabul edilmesi bir yana Gökhan'ın dosyasına bir savcı ataması dahi gerçekleştirilmedi ve nöbetçi savcılık herhangi bir işlem yapmadı. O dönem çeşitli makamlara başvuru yaptık. Yani Türkiye Büyük Millet Meclisi İnsan Hakları Komisyonu, İçişleri Bakanlığı, Adalet Bakanlığı, İstanbul'da bulunan Terörle Mücadele Şubesi, her yere sorduk müvekkilimizi ve resmi devlet kurumlarından bir açıklama yapmasını istedik. Özellikle İçişleri Bakanlığı ve Adalet Bakanlığı'ndan. Ama Gökhan bulunana kadar herhangi bir yetkili makam tarafından hiçbir açıklama yapılmadı. Türkiye'de hak ve özgürlük mücadelesi yürüten demokratik kurumlar, hukuk örgütleri, Gökhan aynı zamanda sosyalist bir işçi olduğu için çeşitli sendikalar ve konfederasyonlar, siyasi partiler Gökhan'ın bulunması için çok ciddi ve çok anlamlı bir mücadele yürüttüler. Yine dünyanın pek çok kentinde, başta Avrupa olmak üzere, Avrupa kentleri olmak üzere eylemler yapıldı Gökhan'ın bulunması için. Gökhan'ın ailesi İstanbul'un her yerinde, yani başta kayıplar mücadelesinin simgesi haline gelmiş Galatasaray Meydanı olmak üzere İstanbul'un her meydanında, Gökhan'ın yaşadığı mahallede, yaşadığı ilçede, iş yerinde, her yerde 6 gün boyunca eylemler yaptı. Sokağa çıkma yasağına rağmen. Yine Avrupa Parlamentosu Türkiye'ye sorulmak üzere, daha doğrusu İçişleri Bakanı Süleyman Soylu'ya sorulmak üzere bir mektup gönderdi. Gökhan Güneş kaçırıldı ve bu kişiyle ilgili bir açıklama yapmak zorundasınız minvalinde bir mektup gönderdi. Ama İçişleri Bakanlığı tarafından, Süleyman Soylu tarafından böyle bir mektuba yanıt dahi verilmedi. Hem hukuk kurumlarının, hem demokratik kitle örgütlerinin, hem siyasi partilerin, hem de Gökhan'ın ailesi ve arkadaşlarının yapmış olduğu anlamlı mücadele sonucunda Gökhan bırakıldı, serbest bırakıldı. Ama 6 gün boyunca Gökhan çok yoğun ve sistematik olarak işkenceye maruz kaldı. Bilmediği bir yere zorla götürüldü, bilmediği bir yerde kapatıldı. Sistematik bir şekilde işkenceye ve tecavüz tehdidine maruz kaldı. Askıya alındı, ters kelepçeli şekilde çıplak bir vaziyette saatlerce, günlerce bekletildi ve kabadayak işkencesine de maruz kaldı tüm bunların yanı sıra. Ve 6 günün sonunda Gökhan'ı kaçıran kişiler ıssız bir yerde gözlerini bağlayarak Gökhan'ı yine aynı şekilde nasıl kaçırdılarsa aynı şekilde bırakmak zorunda kaldılar. Bu şu bakımdan elbette çok anlamlı. Gökhan'ın kaçırılmasına verilen toplumsal tepki bir devlet politikasının bir dönem bakımından uygulanmış ve verilen mücadeleler sonucu geriletilmiş olan bir devlet politikasının yeniden aynı biçimde uygulanamayacağını da göstermiş oldu. Ama elbette bunlar Gökhan'dan sonra son bulmadı. Pek çok kişi kayıt dışı bir şekilde gözaltına alındı. Bu kadar uzun süreli olmasa da saatlerce, günlerce yine kaçırılan, tehdit edilen, işkenceye maruz kalan insanlar oldu. Bu aynı zamanda bizim bakımımızdan aynı duyarlılığı, aynı dayanışmayı, aynı refleksi göstermemiz anlamına gelen, böyle bir sorumluluk da yükleyen bir yanını gösteriyor. Bugün maalesef kaçırılan, kaybedilen ve hala bulunamayan pek çok kişi mevcut. Gülistan Doku bunlardan biri, Hürmüz Diril bunlardan biri, Hüseyin Galip Küçükozyiğit bunlardan birisi. Onların aileleri, arkadaşları, kadın örgütleri, toplumsal kesimler hala onların bulunması için mücadelesine devam ediyor. Bizler de Gökhan bulunduktan sonra yeniden bir suç duyurusu dilekçesi verdik. Çünkü artık kaçırma dışında bir sistematik işkence ve eziyet suçu yeniden oluşmuş oldu. Bununla ilgili yeni başvurularımızı yaptık ama her şey çok ağır ilerliyor. Gökhan'ın arkadaşlarının, ailesinin, bizlerin kendi çabamızla bulduğu kamera görüntüleri dahi soruşturma dosyasına bizler tarafından sunuluyor. Bindiği otobüsün plakası, bindiği otobüs aracının kamera görüntüleri bunları bile kendi çabamızla bulup soruşturma dosyasına veriyoruz. Ama maalesef Türk yargısı, bu soruşturmayı yürüten savcılık, Gökhan'ı kaçıran kişilerin kim olduğu, gerçek faillerin ne olduğuyla ilgili son derece duyarsızlık ve çabasızlık içerisinde hareket ediyor ve aynı zamanda bu faillere de ortak olmuş oluyor. Çünkü Gökhan kayıt dışı bir şekilde kameraların önünde, İstanbul'da büyük bir şehrin ortasında, iş yerinin önünde gözaltına alındı ve gözaltında olduğu süre boyunca bir kendisine ajanlık dayatıldı ve gözaltına alan, onu alıkoyan ve işkence eden kişiler kendisini görünmezler olarak tarif ettiler. Bu aslında kimlerin olduğu, yani hangi devlet içerisindeki hangi birimler tarafından kaçırıldığı ve aslında bir kaybedilme politikasına yeniden kapı aralamak isteyenlerin, bu yolla hak ve özgürlük mücadelesi yürüten kişilerin bastırılmasını amaçlayan kişilerin yapmış olduğu bir çaba. Bunu böyle söyleyebiliriz sonuç olarak. Ama biz hukukçular olarak, Gökhan'ın avukatları olarak, Türkiye'de hak ve özgürlük mücadelesi yürüten hukukçular olarak Gökhan'ı kaçıran ve sistematik olarak ona işkence eden ve Gökhan'ı kaybetmek isteyen kişilerle ilgili hukuki mücadelemize ve diğer kayıpların bulunması için mücadele etmeye devam edeceğiz.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your testimony on behalf of Gokhan Gunes. Now I will give the floor immediately to Judge van der Westhuizen.
Yes, thank you very much for the testimony. Two very short questions. In the documents we have, your client, Mr. Gunes, is described as a socialist worker. What does that mean? And then I have another small question.
Merhabalar. Hello. Yes. Gokhan lives in Istanbul. He's from Tokat. He is from a Alawite family. It's a family of workers. He has been working as an electrician. That's how he has been making his living. Of course, as many people, he also needs to exert his labor. That's how he earns his life. And also, he is a person who has been defending the rights of workers and laborers, just like himself, and he has a socialist worldview. And for that reason, he has been part of a trade union. He has been part of the struggle. And he also participated several press releases, press conferences, several demonstrations and actions, and he was detained many times. There were several procedures against him. He was on trial. So being a socialist, being an opponent in Turkey also brings about some problems, and he is a person who has personally experienced these problems. That's his social and political existence. That's how we can term him. He is the child of a socialist and labor family.
He's actually an activist. But the second question relates more to your own situation. We have heard evidence here of people who were abducted and tortured simply because of the school their children go to. People who say they broadly associate with the Gulen movement because they stand for goodness. In your presentation of your client's evidence, you put a lot of your own ideas in there about fighting for liberty and truth and justice and so on. And all of that I appreciate very much. But how is it that lawyers like you have been spared the harsh treatment that people with much less involvement have been meted out to, or have been subjected to? Or perhaps I just don't know, but seeing that you've put your own opinions here forward as part of the testimony, what is your own situation? Are you safe? And other members of the legal profession who do the same kind of work as you are doing?
Let me put it this way. Yes, lawyers or the defense authority that's represented by lawyers are under threat in many countries, as in Turkey. So this is associated with the people that we represent at courts. Actually, lawyers is a profession where you represent the governed people against the people who govern. So you represent the people against the capital. So you are in the defense position. So as required by the quality of our profession, we have become targeted by the power, by the government. But specifically since 2015, there has been a regime change in Turkey. This regime change has to a great extent relied on attacks towards legal mechanisms and the authority of defense. This is how it has taken place. Within 5 or 6 years, last 5 or 6 years, many of our colleagues have been subjected to trials. There have been many colleagues who have been detained. And this is specifically the case for lawyers who are in a struggle for human rights. And also, along with my colleague Özlem, I was detained for a while, and I still have some procedures against me, some legal procedures against me that haven't yet been concluded. This is totally related to the way in which we practice our profession. In addition to that, it's also related to there has been some changes in the positions of the lawyers during the trial procedures. There have been some legal amendments, and these have been regulated by means of decrees in the force of law in the state of emergency period. Even though we are no longer living in a state of emergency, many of these decrees in the force of law have become enacted. So they have become legislations. So there is a limitation of defense mechanisms. There are attacks against lawyers, or because of the defense that lawyers present in court, they are being put on trial. So these are prime examples of this situation. So in Turkey, not only citizens, but also the other people who are opponents of the current political regime, people who hold a different opinion, are represented by lawyers. And such lawyers...
Enough, that answers my question. What you say is also relevant to one of the later topics, namely the status of the legal system and the legal profession. I was just wondering about your own personal safety in view of the views you expressed. But thank you, the answer suffices.
Thank you very much. I will give in Verny.
Many thanks. I have two questions. The first one is, do you know why the police arrested Mr. Gunes and why they released him after a few days? Did they give any reason of the kidnapping and then for the release? This is the first question. And the second one is, I can read here that it couldn't come here in person, because he is still under treatment after the torture that he endured. Could you tell us how he is now? What is his state of health? Is now, has he recovered or is he still under treatment?
Let me start with the second question. Yes. After Gokhan was released, he has been going through an intensive period of treatment, both physically and psychologically. Because of the physical torture he was subjected to, he has been treated, and he also, of course, has been psychologically suffering from the torture. So therefore, he is being treated. He is being going through a psychological treatment. So he is still able to continue his life. He is able to work at a profession. He is able to maintain his normal life routine, but he is not yet able to talk publicly about what he went through. He is not able to clearly talk about what he went through in such open platforms. Therefore, he didn't choose to participate in this platform. Not only on this platform, but in many platforms he has chosen not to participate because his treatment process is ongoing, and resharing those accounts somehow trigger the previous traumas. So as his lawyers, we respect his choice, but I'm able to share that his health is going better. He is in a better condition. So as for the first question, as I just expressed, Gokhan is a person who has socialist ideas, and that's the reason why he was subjected to such an attack. As you know, in the 1990s, in Turkey and in the Kurdistan geography, many people were forcefully abducted and they were lost under detention. But in order to find the people who were lost, in order to have a reconciliation, a struggle was waged. So this has been actually partially successful. So we have been able to solve some of these cases, but especially in the last couple of years, this trend has risen again. Especially, we have seen these cases more often in illegal detentions. Especially, such a person as Gokhan has been abducted, and they actually tried to make him disappear. And this is actually a result of a war policy. That was the intention, was to make him disappear. So these were the reasons in our perspective why after 6 days again they had to release him. I am saying they had to release him because as of the moment when Gökhan was abducted, actually we know that the motivation was to make him disappear under detention. That was the motivation of the people who abducted him. Their aim was to make him disappear, turn him into a disappeared person. But during these 6 days, Gökhan's family, his companions, his comrades, his friends, several democratic mass organizations, NGOs, and lawyers, we have waged a very successful and active struggle by means of the Human Rights Association in Turkey. We have made several applications, and the family of Gökhan was able to uncover the video footage of Gökhan's abduction with their own efforts. We also submitted these to the judicial bodies of the government, of the state. This is actually the responsibility of the judicial bodies of the state, but we know that they wouldn't do this. So, in a big city like Istanbul, in front of all the cameras, a person was abducted in broad daylight. So they were unable to dismiss such a successful struggle. And we also raised public opinion internationally in many cities in Europe. Many demonstrations were held, not only in Turkey, but also in several European cities. Some actions were taken. The European Parliament also had an initiative about this. After our application, they sent a letter to the Ministry of Interior of Turkey. So various international associations and organizations asked, where is Gökhan? In Turkey, also member of parliaments from CHP and HDP parties also gave some motions of they submitted some motions to the parliament. Also in January in 2021 in Turkey there were curfews in Turkey because of the pandemic, and actually this also meant a prohibition of any demonstrations in Turkey in effect. But in those days when there was a curfew, the family and friends of Gokhan also made several demonstrations in front of the police station and also in Galatasaray Square, which has become a symbol of such demonstrations in Turkey. So, in many streets, in many institutions, they sought after Gökhan all around the world. They actually went through all the processes that would ever be possible. We made applications to the prosecutor's office, to the parliament. So it was a social reaction. It was a massive social reaction, and they had to release him after all this. And also the fact that there was the actual footage actually proved that it was a crime. So in terms of his abductors, this was a clear crime. So also his comrades, his families, his family members, and the whole society concerted their efforts to continue the struggle, and therefore this process, which might have ended with the killing of Gökhan, has been intercepted.
Thank you. I think we have the answer to the question. Before giving the floor to Judge Bianco, here two questions coming from Judge Pace, but I think we already have the answer to them. Did the abduction happen this year? I think it was in 2020. Okay, is it correct?
In January 2021, 21.
Okay, so it is this year. Excellent. The second question was concerning any form of treatment, but I think we received the answer to that. Yes, he received physical and psychological treatment from that time. Okay, now I will give the floor to Judge Bianco.
Thank you, Madam President. I believe part of my question in relation to your client has been just answered. However, I think I'd like to pose it in more kind of general terms, and probably even going back to the report presented yesterday by Mr. Heymans. Is there in Turkey any kind of system, platform, database, I'm referring also to the testimony we heard this morning, for these people who are believed to have been abducted or disappeared? A system which would inform their families, would inform the public opinion, the institutions, NGOs, civil society, media, whatever. Is there any such a kind of database, international organizations as well, which would allow the public opinion to understand what is going on, but also the families? I mean, families there, they don't know about the fate of their kind of close relatives. So they might, of course, they wonder, as we heard this morning. So is there any kind of database and action of the civil society, as much as you can? I mean, you can explain this as a lawyer, to alleviate this situation and to start and collect evidence, but also to find where these people are, because we've seen cases also before the European Court of Human Rights that with the passage of time it is extremely difficult then to find what happened to these people. So what's going on in these terms? Thank you.
Let me put it this way. The attack of disappearance under detention happened more intensely in the year 1990s, and in Turkey we have this movement that we called Saturday Mothers. So it's a platform, it's a work group that has been formed by such people. So these Saturday Mothers every year gather in Galatasaray Square in Istanbul. They want to learn about the fate of their relatives and friends, and they also wage a legal struggle, of course. Some of them have been able to find, some of them haven't been able to find their close ones. Some of them have still ongoing trials, and some of their trials have been concluded. So the Human Rights Foundation and the Human Rights Association in Turkey have actually been working on such topics such as disappearance and torture under detention. They have prepared reports on this. They also have made applications about people who have been disappeared under detention. So the most sound information can be provided by the Human Rights Association and the Human Rights Foundation of Turkey. These are the two main NGOs I can cite for you. And also several people who have been lost and couldn't be found, such as Gülistan Doku. There are many names that we can mention. So about such people, the Human Rights Association has received such applications also by means of Human Rights Association. Also, the United Nations Committee of the Disappeared People also received some applications, and the most sound, the most systematic information are still being maintained by societies that wage this struggle for rights. That's what I can say.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for you, Mr. Husband, for your very, very important testimony. Thank you to you, the lawyers who help us to understand the situation.